You know, when I was in 8th grade, my friends came over. We printed out Hunger Games movie posters and ironed them on to matching shirts, which on the back of we wrote with glitter glue quotes like "May the odds be ever in your favor." And we went and sat on the floor at the mall for 6 hours waiting to see the first Hunger Games movie. It's been a decade since a Hunger Games book came out. When we found out last year that a prequel was coming, everyone was very quick to be skeptical. We've seen some questionable YA prequels in our time, but we seem to have forgotten The Hunger Games is truly what started it all. I've been rewatching the movies this past weekend since finishing the book. I only have the final one to watch, and I had forgotten just how good these stories are. We take for granted the impact that The Hunger Games has had on YA. The mark it made in publishing is literally still happening. So I was pretty casually interested when The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was announced. No one knew what to make of this for this entire past year. What is this cover? What is this title? It looks a lot like the previous ones in the style, but it's also unique on its own. And then when we found out that Coriolanus Snow would be the protagonist, it would be the 10th Hunger Games, I was like, I'm gonna read it, but I don't know. We'll see. This is Suzanne Collins we're dealing with. It's been a decade. Clearly this story came from a good place, needed to be told. But the days leading up to the book coming out, I was suddenly like, this is what I'm living for. I don't know if it's the quarantine, but waking up that Tuesday morning, going to buy this book curbside at Barnes & Noble was so exciting. It was one of the highlights of the week. Oh my gosh. Also, this book is larger than all of the other books in the trilogy, so I was like, what are we in for right now? I'm gonna assume that you've read the Hunger Games trilogy and probably seen the movies, but if you haven't read this one yet, my recommendation is that yes, you should read it. It is worth your time. You're probably curious anyway. It's extremely readable, really gripping, new characters, twists like you would never expect. It's just a really great story, and I think you'll have fun revisiting Panem before it was what we knew. I am probably just gonna discuss, so I wouldn't watch any further if you haven't read this book. I'm seeing some people really enjoy this book, but also lots of roasting, lots of complaining about it. I'm sort of team, it's really good. First of all, I don't know what you were expecting. Every complaint that I see, I'm kind of just like, you want this book to be something it's not. Like, you want it to not be a Hunger Games book. You don't want to read about President Snow. You don't want to read about the 10th Hunger Games. All of these things we knew ahead of time. I found this story to be really gripping. I often forgot while reading that we were reading about President Snow. I wasn't thinking about Donald Sutherland, but then often I would take a step back and be like, oh wow. And watching the movies over again, there are some moments in Donald Sutherland's acting that I just, obviously he had no clue about any of this, unless he did. But there's this moment in the first movie, I'm sure it's in the book too, I didn't reread them recently.
What a lovely pen.
Thank you, it's from my district.
They must be very proud of you.
The weight that moment has. Now, after reading this book, the parallels I really enjoyed while they were happening. They do feel a lot like fan service. The songs, the hanging tree, those being Lucy Gray songs, the Katniss flowers, the District 12 of it all very symbolic things that we as fans notice and are like, ah! But those are not even close to the standouts of the book for me. I was laser focused on him as a character. What transformation could we possibly see this character go through? That's what I went in focused on, but I ended up just being lost in the story. I was obsessed with Lucy Gray. I loved Lucy Gray right off the bat. She's so lovable. In every Hunger Games book, we get this rush from this rebellion, and we see that immediately with her, with the snakes and with the mayor, the way she acts coming off the train. Lucy Gray was such a compelling character. I wanted her to radicalize Coriolanus even more than she almost did. I couldn't believe that they used to be in the zoo and that Coriolanus was a big part of reforming the games, making them more of an event. Suzanne Collins has this discussion in the back of the book where she talks about a lot of philosophers, Enlightenment thinkers, and how different characters in Coriolanus's class represent these different ideas of enlightenment. I find that to be really interesting. I don't know if it really came through for me. I just saw Sejanus as someone who came from a more level-headed standpoint and was not exactly buying what was given to him in class. You know, at 18, that's when you start to form your own political opinions. So it's not uncommon in those upper level high school classes to see someone going against the world as it is presented to them, especially so forcefully like that. It's almost human nature. The most compelling part for me, weirdly, was the games, part 2 of the book. Following these characters and their mentors in the Hunger Games was a unique experience from reading Katniss's point of view in the Hunger Games. We were obviously rooting for Lucy Gray, but she was absent for most of it. Coriolanus going into the arena was fascinating. The snakes in the arena were a highlight point for me. I hate snakes so much, but just the writing in that section was definitely one of the strongest parts of this story. It's interesting in this, and also kind of in the other books, especially 1 and 2, how they do happen in very clear sections, but in those sections there are so many twists and turns. I think that is really the secret sauce of her writing, is the constant twists in the plot. That is such a gift. It makes it so much fun to read. And that is the biggest thing I can say about this book, is no matter the critiques I have of it, I had a blast this past week reading it. I'm so glad I got to experience a new Hunger Games story. When part 2 ended with the couple sentences about how Coriolanus was on his way to enlist to become a peacekeeper, I laughed out loud. I was like, oh, so there's only 100 or 2 pages left and we're taking this sharp left turn. Why are we doing this? What's about to happen? Are we gonna find out that President Snow spent 20 years as a peacekeeper? Wouldn't that have been an important detail in the Hunger Games trilogy? Dr. Gall was such a wicked character. I pictured her like an evil Professor Trelawney. Where it really gets interesting from like a President Snow character study point of view are those last few chapters. It gets really real that Snow almost became this radicalized outlaw running away with love. And it was not like this one moment where we watched him become evil. Although you could argue, I guess, like watching him see that duffel bag with the gun and realizing that like he could clear himself. But this bitch was selfish the whole time. Maybe because we already knew President Snow, maybe because Coriolanus was kind of like this snarky Draco Malfoy attitude guy in his class. Like, he was always very smart, but in a way that was self-serving. You know, the stakes were high for him with his family. He wanted to do the right thing, kind of. But, you know, his morals were just not in the right place, just like most of the people in the Capitol. So it's this moment where he almost gets it. Like, he does get it. And he decides himself. I think, like, I'm glad this book exists. This is great. It's the fact that the people in the Capitol do get it, but they're afraid and selfish. And this is the world that has been presented to them, except Coriolanus watched it happen before him at the end of the war when he was a kid. I, and many others, I'm assuming, appreciate the fact that we are not meant to sympathize with him or, you know, see him in a new light, or it was hard for him all along. He is a dick, but he's also really compelling, and there's so much more to the story that is worth knowing and great to read about because it's coming from a legend like Suzanne Collins. So that's about it. I don't have my original hardcovers with me. I just have these random collector's edition paperbacks. Back in the time where I didn't have rent to pay and could buy like multiple editions of my favorite book series. What a time being 14 and mowing lawns for money. They are really cute though. Look at these. What are our lives as YA fans for a decade plus? Like Twilight this year, Midnight Sun, this, Percy Jackson. These are thoughts for another time, but like, so those are my thoughts on The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I hope we get more stories. I would love to read about Haymitch's Hunger Games. I would love to read more Almost Revolutions. 75 years of the Hunger Games. Like, a lot of stuff had to happen. So please let me know your thoughts. I know that a lot of the opinions I expressed are not the common opinion. So, like, I'm ready to go in and discuss. So please leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about this crazy, crazy book. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Tiernan. I'll leave all of my links in the description. You can follow me online. Have a good one. I'll see you guys very soon. See you later. Goodbye.